Ms. Rath, Mr. McHugh, Mr. D, everybody. Anyway, Andre's out today, so he's not joining us. Ms. Purcell and Ms. Padilla will be online virtually. I think Ms. Padilla is on and Ms. Purcell is,
Well, when she joins, I will let you know.
okay, so she'll be joining us. So I'll call this meeting to order and start by, before we adopt the agenda, I wanted to, Dr. Jones sent us some materials on the revised interlocal agreement with the county, and I wanted to add that in because it does have implications for the capital plan. So, if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to suggest that we just add a conversation on the interlocal agreement after the operating budget discussion. Is that okay with everybody?
You said after the operating budget?
After the operating budget. Before the capital improvement plan is really the operative piece. And with that change, I'd like to get a motion to approve the agenda.
Sure, is that, I mean,
I don't know if that, we're happy to discuss it whenever it folds in. I don't know that we need a actual item on the agenda to do it. We looped it in with capital improvement plans.
Okay, so we'll do it at the beginning of the capital improvement plan, either
Yes.
way.
Yeah,
Works for
we
me.
sent it just for conversation, sorry, Ms. Smiley.
oh, we're gonna have further conversation, I'm just aware, like, Neil isn't here, and, like, we'll have further conversation. There's conversation planned at a future board meeting, or something like that,
No, we can get to, if we want to talk, we can talk about it now if you want, where we are with the interlocal agreement.
What I read is the county commissioners will approve it on the 3rd. They're
Well-
discussing it on the 3rd. We've already submitted a draft to them.
They submitted a draft to us
Mhm.
that was reworked based on an initial draft that was sent probably in the fall.
or?
Staff are working together between us and Chapel Hill and the county. And they submitted a version for us to review. I gave that to you all, just as a FYI review. And then we submitted some recommendations to the county, and that's where we are. So we haven't heard back. Our revisions that we're recommending, we've worked through with legal, and we're just waiting to hear back where that is.
Okay.
Yeah, I know the county plans on putting it, I think, on a February agenda, but I'm not sure how far they plan to get with it. But like I said, if there's feedback, this is the place to discuss it with the board.
Okay.
But really, it's gonna be staff working with staff to bring it back to get an agreement made.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's
Okay,
fine then,
so-
yeah, I thought
Do
we
it
had
at
it scheduled, I thought we were gonna talk about it at the next board meeting, but if we're gonna talk about it here, that's fine.
Okay, so if it's at the beginning of the capital improvement plan, that's fine too. We always, as long as we do it before we discuss the 10-year plan. So with that, motion to approve the agenda.
So
Yes,
moved.
Ed.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
okay, thank you. Minutes, has everyone had a chance to approve the minutes, to review the minutes? Any comments, questions? There was one typo. At the very beginning, Mr. Davis had a double S, but other than that, it was. Any comments or questions? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did I get two ayes there? Okay,
Ms. Purcell is on, so you have Ms. Purcell.
yes, great, thank you.
Yes.
So if we'll start with, Ms. Rath is gonna talk about the operating budget, and as we discussed it, as we know, there's a kind of working continuation budget, even though we do not have a state budget. And then we'll actually have the full discussion of our expansion budget in our February meeting, but we could start that conversation today.
All right, good evening. So at the conclusion of the meeting this evening, we intend for you to have an understanding of our operational 26-27 local budget and capital budget, receive capital improvement updates, and receive the design process overview. Go ahead to the next one, thank you. So as we begin discussions for our upcoming fiscal year, I always like to pick you up where I last left you. And where we last were was in August of 2025, where we approved the local operating budget of $46.8 million. That budget was based on a per pupil spending level of $5,877 per student, as adopted by the Orange County Board of County Commissioners in June. Our approved budget anticipated a budget shortfall of roughly $200,000. In order to ensure that we have a balanced budget, we took a critical look at programs that were underperforming or not aligned with our current priorities. Where we found limited impact on outcomes, we phased out or restructured those initiatives. In certain cases, this allowed us to redirect funds toward areas with a clearer return on investment, particularly those that directly support students and instructional quality. Additionally, and we're going to talk about this more later on in this presentation, we continue to closely monitor and analyze our state funding allocations and align spending to best reflect the actual needs across the district. Next slide. This graph should look familiar, and it provides a view of how we plan to spend our fiscal year 26 funding received from the commissioners. As reflected here, you can see that the largest component of the local operating budget supports staff salaries and benefits, which is 68%. We have no state budget at this point, but we continue to plan for state mandated salary increases as we planned in this budget. Right now, the only increases that we do have that are legislated is the step increases for our certified staff, and that's for staff that are paid on the certified teaching scale. The General Assembly authorized that they got the step increase, and that is all that has been authorized. Next slide. Now I'd like to take an opportunity to share more about the state budget, or lack thereof, and what we know at this time. North Carolina is the only state in the nation without an approved budget at this time. We're operating under continuation funding, so in other words, prior year funding levels remain in place. So what does this mean? Schools continue to operate, spending is limited to prior authorizations even as costs or needs have increased, and we continue to operate conservatively while waiting for state action. Why does it matter? Inflation and growth still occur. Costs for salaries, benefits, transportation, utilities, they continue to rise even though our funding remains flat. Late budgets compress implementation windows, and that places more burden on us as we try to implement any budgets that do come forward. Again, I will say that we continue to operate conservatively to avoid overcommitting without any state support. No budget does not close the schools, but it does limit what we can do. It limits funding for growth, particularly in salaries, and it delays unfunded improvements and increases uncertainty for us. Next slide. So why doesn't North Carolina have a budget? In order to develop and implement a budget, there must be agreement on the total amount of funding that is available. Next slide. At this time, there is no agreement on the total amount of funding that will be available. A large component of the state revenues that fund the budget are derived from personal income taxes. The rate has been 4.25%. Under a 2023 budget compromise, the state tax rate was slated to decrease in January of 2026 to 3.99% and further decrease to 3.49% in 2027 as long as revenue targets were met. So fiscal year 24-25 actual revenue came in slightly above the budgeted amount, therefore triggering the 2023 budget compromise to lower personal income tax rates. The House proposes leaving the rate at 3.99% for 2026 and 2027. However, the Senate wants to keep the rates exactly as they are listed in the 2023 budget compromise, dropping to 3.99 and then further dropping in 27 to 3.49%. Without legislation, the 2023 budget compromise rate will be in place. Next slide. So think of the state budget like
I'm
a.
sorry, excuse me, just, can you say that again? Without, if they don't do anything, then the tax cut goes into effect? Wow, okay.
So I'd like for you to think about the state budget like a bucket of money that pays for schools, roads, and other services. With the 2023 budget compromise reduced rate, income taxes are scheduled to decrease as reflected here. Each tax cut means less money in the bucket each year. So as you can see here, at first it's small. So in this current fiscal year, it's projected to lose $0.5 billion. But as you can see, by the time we get to fiscal year 2030-31, the state will have roughly $5.6 billion less in its bucket each year. Keep in mind that education is roughly 40% of the state budget. So that's a significant number. Schools continue to face rising costs for staff, pay and benefits, student transportation, and overall operations. So again, it is why we must continue to be very conservative with our spending. If we close this fiscal year without a state budget, you can anticipate seeing a good amount of savings. However, if a budget is passed and salary increases are more than the 3% that we forecasted, Orange County Schools, as well as the other 114 school districts, will struggle to fund the budget and implement them without making cuts or reductions.
For this year,
For
like
this
this year's
year.
budget, because that'll be retroactive,
Mhm.
most likely, right?
So, just again, this remains why we cannot implement any new programming or positions at this time. So let's talk about what we do know. Yes?
For the health plan increases that, the cost for healthcare increases that the state has put in place, does that affect our budget or does it only affect our staff?
So we also saw and planned for an increase in the portion that we pay for every staff member's health benefits, but the employees also saw an increase that started in January.
Okay, so just more pressure on the budget.
Yes.
It pressures our budget as well as.
Yes, we did plan for an increase and did see that increase in our budgets.
Okay, thank you.
So let's talk about what we do know. Right now, we do know that we will receive less state and local funding in fiscal year 27 as a result of declining enrollment. We know that we will be funded on 6,733 students in fiscal year 27, which is 182 students less than we received funding for this year. So this, in conjunction with anticipated federal cuts, further solidifies our approach to remain conservative in our current spending. So that's pretty much what we can say about the budget right now, which is not a whole lot because we don't know a whole lot. But as we get ready to transition in discussing our capital plans, let's take a moment to review operating funding versus capital funding. It is important to remember that operating and capital funds are separated by law and cannot be interchanged. We have discussed why staff have not seen pay raises this year and what new programs or initiatives are being implemented. These operating items are funded through the state public school fund, the local Orange County appropriations, and any approved federal program grants. We're getting ready to transition and talk about building a new school and planning for $300 million school bond approved by the voters in November. Capital funds are generated from county bonds and capital taxes, eligible state capital appropriations, and any limited federal facility grants for those that are eligible. So please keep in mind that as we begin discussions around building a new school and implementing roof or other building renovations while not being able to provide raises to our staff, that capital funds are derived from a totally different source than operating funds. Again, operating and capital funds are separated by law and cannot be interchanged. So this means that we cannot take any of our capital funds provided from the bonds and taxes to implement pay increases for our staff. So we wanted to just take an opportunity to, highlight that and talk about that again, because I understand it's difficult for people to understand and hear us talk about building a new school and these capital improvements when we've not been able to give any pay raises or implement any new programs in the district. So now, I'm gonna turn it over to my partner to talk to you guys about the capital improvement plan and the process overview for the bond. Yes?
Before we do that, I guess I wanna open up the floor to questions about the operating budget and thoughts and comments.
I don't have any questions. I think this is like a helpful walkthrough of the situation right now. I think one thought that I was having as we were looking at this and we were looking at the pie chart of the 68% of local budget going to salaries and benefits is that I bet if you added in, if you put all of our funding for schools together, that would actually be an even higher percentage.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah, so that.
So
I think
this is just looking at the local.
So 68% of our local budget
Right.
goes towards salary and benefits, but if you add in the state-funded positions and the federal funding, I think we've looked at
It's
it
about
before.
80%.
It's about
About
80%, and so that
80,
68% might sound low to folks who are familiar with about how much of budgets go to salary and benefits generally, but actually if you look at our whole budget, it is closer to 80%, so just wanted to
Thank you
name
for
that. I think it's a
pointing that
helpful
out.
thing to share, so I'm glad that you shared how that breaks down, but just wanted to call that out. But thank you.
Other comments? I have, I understand the state situation with the state, but the county, there's no reason to assume that there'll be no increase from the county. Right? At least we haven't gotten that. I know the commissioners are having a retreat next week. I haven't looked at their materials. They'll be talking about their finances. But our teachers have not seen a raise for 2 years. Our staff, we have not been able to get our classified staff. The steps increased, and so I would not be working under the assumption of nothing. I just am not comfortable with that, and I don't know how the other rest of the board feels of, how hard do we push on the county? And then they're not gonna be able to do what the state does. They're not gonna be able to address the shortfalls of the state. But I'm, the last 2 years, Chapel Hill got over $1 million each year. We didn't get anything. So, I didn't get anything last year. We got actually $200,000 less. The year before, I don't think they gave us anything either, did they?
We've seen a per pupil increase each year. So we have seen that per pupil increase, but, there's several components involved there. We did not get our continuation budget funded. This current fiscal year, we were short $200,000. But last year, we did have our continuation budget funded, and we actually had a little bit that we were able to apply towards expansion initiatives.
Got it.
We
And
were
the-
not able to implement the raises that we asked for our certified staff or our classified staff. But we did have our continuation budget
Yeah,
funded.
so just to clarify and for the audience too, is we saw a higher per pupil because the funding was essentially a little bit below continuation, but since our number of students is going down, our per pupil goes up, right? So it's,
No,
yeah.
no.
We're getting the same amount of money and the number of students goes down, then the per pupil
no.
amount
We
goes up.
request continuation
It's a little bit higher.
based on what we predict the state to give us, and that helps to increase our per pupil rate. And so that's what that's based off of. And so, and then just to add to the per pupil, because I don't know where the million for Chapel Hill, where we didn't get, I don't know if you want to ask about that or clarify it, but.
I think that-
It's
It's-
local tax.
oh, the
They got the
local.
local tax
Yeah.
increase.
Okay, well, because we're funded the same per pupil,
Right.
by the county,
Except for that
Right.
local tax.
except for the local.
Except for
tax.
the local
Yes,
tax.
extra,
So-
Yeah.
which is challenging when we
Yeah.
don't even
Yeah.
meet our continuation needs, so.
Right, so they did get more money, they just got it funded differently, because.
They have a separate tax than Orange County schools.
Right, right, so they better. Yeah, but, so it's a combination, I hear that, so part of it's because we did get more money on continuation because we anticipated a state budget that was a little bit, so we ended up with a little bit better. I get that.
And we
But-
still are, because they still can come back and implement.
Yeah, and we're still going to request some form of continuation, it's just
Yes.
we're in a different situation right now where we typically have a budget to help us formulate what the continuation will be, and we typically have some indication from the state of the direction that they're gonna go, but it's just a different time for all school districts right now.
Go ahead.
Just trying to remember how this works. So if our continuation, was an increase because we anticipated salary increases, which haven't gone into effect yet, are we like saving that money? But then if it passes and there are salary increases, is it done in arrears?
Yes, it can be.
Okay.
Typically, whenever they pass a budget, it is retroactive
Okay,
to July 1st. They would legislate, never been in this territory before,
Mhm.
at this late in the game. They could legislate that it's effective January. They have the ability to
to,
dictate that.
to decide the start date, to decide how far back,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
And some of the 3% has been utilized because some of the salaries were released from the state, yeah.
That is correct.
Right, okay.
To say more about that, thank you, Dr. Jones. So the state did mandate that they get the step increase
Mhm.
on the certified scale, but the state did not provide the funding for that. So as a result, we looked at the percentage, the 3% increase that we got from the local to be able to sustain that at this point.
That is another reason we're in the holding pattern that we're in, to try to protect the resources that we do have and the staff that we do have moving forward until we know the direction that the state's gonna go.
Do you have an idea roughly how much that is? Are we talking about hundreds of that? How much that is?
I can get that for you. I
Yeah.
don't know off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
I just don't know, we don't know if we're talking about 50,000 or 500,000 or.
How much, what is the step increase?
Yeah, how much did we have to sub-finance for that?
I'm spitballing, I would say 250 to 500,000.
Yeah, so, and again, our teachers got a big healthcare premium increase this year, plus plus their benefits were cut, so the situation is certainly difficult. All right.
I have a comment. Thank you for accommodating me tonight. I'm not feeling so great. I just want to say to Ms. Rath and her team, Dr. Jones, thank you for really working within the budget that we have, and doing great working with the limitations that we have. I think that our district is doing great, and I just want to acknowledge that you're working within your limitations.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. All right. Anything else on the operating budget? We'll hear more next month. That'll be the focus of our meeting next month, so.
That will be part of it.
And no one's heard anything else about the timing of all this, right? It truly could go all the way to the end of the fiscal year.
Or we could not get a budget,
Or we
and
could
then we
not
move
have a
on
budget.
to the
That's
next year.
And that,
Right.
but the tax, if that happens, then the tax cut's gonna go into effect.
Mhm.
Well, it's already, did you say it's already in effect?
Well, not yet, but it's slated to go into effect, I said January, but it's really July of
Okay.
2026 is when it would be slated, because that's how the fiscal year runs. So without legislation, it will go into play. We know that the short session starts, mid to late April, is it 21st or 24th? We also know it's an election year. So, other than that, I wish I had a crystal ball and, could predict. I would love to see, significant raises for our staff, but I caveat that where if they do materialize, that's gonna be, a significant blow to the district.
Has the county offered any guidance, or has been any conversation with the county about contingencies around this? Okay. All right. Capital, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Capital improvement plan. So I want to start with the interlocal agreement that we received. You all saw the interlocal agreement, and the changes. So I wanted to take take a few minutes to talk about that. Did anyone have any comments about that? Because I just wanted to, first of all, I appreciated the changes that you all offered, because if you looked, I'm sorry, reading this stuff is my idea of fun, but after reading it, the idea of us controlling the way people get paid and as opposed to county paying us after the fact, that made sense. There was the idea of the authority was made sense. But here's what I read in it that really threw me, that I was surprised at, and that's when I read it, the interlocal agreement and the county policy controls the bond projects and all the maintenance projects. Everything that goes through all capital funding gets controlled by the county. County decides them all. That their core group that's gonna meet, I don't know if it's gonna meet monthly or quarterly, because the county policy says monthly, the contract says quarterly, but the committee that meets presumably will score every project on the Wolpert categories, and if they're not scored under the Wolpert categories, they have to be funded with the sales tax money or the recurring capital money. So those are constraints that we're agreeing to impose on our capital planning. And so I just wanted to know if everybody, because I had thought at the beginning that the county was only going to be approving the bond projects, but this says they approve them all.
Madam Chair, if you may,
Sure.
just clarification, so the interlocal agreement is specifically for the 24 general obligation bond. This is an agreement that formalizes both us and Chapel Hill Carrboro schools in the work for the school construction and renovation. And in a minute, during the presentation, you mentioned various buckets. You are correct, but we'll show how those fundings align with other projects, such as the capital renewal projects, not the major projects that are funded through the 2024 general obligation bond. And this agreement ends in 2033, which is the anticipated duration of the 10-year plan and the $300 million bond. What it does is it gives clear authority and jurisdiction to the school districts on those specific proposed projects. As Chair Hauser has stated, it does utilize the WOOP report as a guardrail, as well as the major project addendum. However, both school districts have utilized each other's experience to make sure that the projects that we forecast within that 10-year are the major priority. So what this alleviates is, in recent history, projects have added scope and thus added more money, and then it was apparent that there was not enough money to go around. So this agreement continues to strengthen those guardrails. And then also the major, which Wanda may speak to, how we capture the sales tax. So the sales tax is for the major projects, the new elementary school. It is not funded the renovations to our roofs and other major capital renewals that I'll speak about shortly. But all in all, as Dr. Jones has stated, we've met with our legal counsel as well as Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools. We share the same legal and our subject matter expertise allowed us to review it and feel comfortable where it stands. And so we hope that the county will, administration will submit that. And then because it is the ownership of the bond is with the county, once they have agreed to the intent of the agreement as is, we'll bring it back to you so that we can execute it on our end, similar to what Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools will do.
Yeah. Question?
So, yeah, I mean, just to your point about it governing like more than the bond projects, I guess I took, you know, in Article 1, one of the proposed revisions is that this, like, the purpose is to provide for the management and oversight of all construction renovation projects to be funded by the 2024 Orange County General Obligation Bond. So I just
I
took
saw
that to
that.
be,
Mhm.
that applies to the rest of this.
It
So when we
does.
say projects or this kind of thing, it's the ones within that bond.
I saw that, but then as I read on, it reads on to, and also when I looked at the county's policy is pretty clear about the governance, the working group governing all the projects, not just the bond projects. And so I thought the language later on was more ambiguous. So I saw that too, and that's, at first I was okay, but as I read it, I didn't feel that, that this is just about the bond projects. And even as you get into the core team, they're talking about all the projects, as I understood it.
Do you wanna point that out? In the ILA, specifically, cause I know the county has a policy. We can't do a whole lot about what they put in their policy. But I will say this has been like a collaborative process, and, when the ILA comes about, that's what we're agreeing to as far as the bond, funding is concerned. So if you wanna point out
Well,
specific areas.
First of all,
we can.
the ILA references the policy,
Yeah.
right, and it says it governs the policy, and the policy talks about the capital spending projects, the major projects, the high priority needs, and the different funding sources, and it says, I guess as I've read it, so it talks about all, so the policy governs all of it, not just the bond projects. But, when I guess, and I, you know, it's funny, cause I have multiple versions of this, but when I looked at the communication, and the core team, let's see. So the school district shall propose projects for consideration, submit them with description of how they fit the principles by Wolpert, right? So that's section 4.2A. And the working group says that also, that's gonna happen. And so you read this as only so there's gonna be one project for us, right? We have one bond project, correct?
No, I think as
Right.
it ties to the slides coming before you tonight, it makes sense if we go through the presentation and I can align some of your questions with some of the comments or some of the information we shared today. It might make sense if you see it visually, and then I can talk to.
Okay, let's do that,
How it
cause,
works.
'cause I read this differently, and I saw the definition, but as I read through it, it read like more than just the bond projects. But go ahead. I didn't realize we had a presentation on this topic.
Just capital improvement.
Right, but I'll intertwine
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So, good evening. I want to start by, thank you so much for us getting to this point where we have identified our capital improvement plan and how we come to you each year, continue to refine and updating you on the portfolio and facilities of Orange County Schools. We will continue to use data from maintenance and employee surveys on the conditions of our facilities. And in capturing that data, we try to define those buckets into what are capital renewal and capital improvements. And those projects consist of, improvements to our HVAC, all of our mechanical plumbing systems, new roofs, anything that, as we know, their life cycle of 20 to 30 years will need to be replaced. So we forecast that along with working with the county funding system to right-size our projects as we right-size our district. I want to just continue to show these definitions as we get further along in the project. I'll be using some of these words, some of these jargons that Dr. Jones likes so much. So I just want to educate you on where it's coming from. And our capital improvement is anything where we're improving to our portfolio. So an addition, a new school, these are what we have worked with the county on, our major projects. And so the major project that's coming out of the bond, which is a funding source, is the new elementary school. We have recurring capital, we have lottery funds, we have other finance mechanisms that I believe we talked about last year on how capital is dispersed that fit the other projects like HVAC and new roofs. In a minute, we'll talk about how we've spent some of that money in those specific categories to date. These things were not in place prior to Mr. Davis' arrival. And so the notion that we're not spending money may have been true. However, over the last 16 months, Ms. Raff and I can attest, we've spent over roughly $6 million in capital renewal. And I'll show in a minute some of those projects and how we're gonna continue to improve our learning environments for our students. Next slide. So again, these projects fit both capital renewal and capital improvement. And again, great job to all of our operations teams for helping us from start to finish. We have more to come, but major renovations to Orange High School. We've just completed a full roof replacement. Kudos to the administration at New Hope Elementary, Dr. Mayer and her team. For those who are in the school administration, it's very hard to continue business as usual when you have a full roof replacement going on. I think we've managed it very well over the year and a half almost. But you can see if you drive by there, it's a blue roof. It used to be, I think, red. It really actually accents the building a little bit better from my lens. So I'm happy that we could do that, and of course, they're not getting rained on, so that's an example of capital renewal. You know, you try to do it, roof cycle is 20 years. The good thing about New Hope, they got it a little sooner. But since Mr. Davis is here, we're looking at how we prioritize our projects so that we can spread the amount of capital renewal across the district. And we'll be using those data points to make sure that we're equitable in our spending. And again, an example of a capital improvement is the final renovation of Ethel Cheeks Global Elementary School. It was a mid-year move, and we've been talking to staff, and we may try to do something beginning of the new school year, just to showcase the new spaces that the team came up with. So just a little update on that. Next slide, please. So here is our county-approved capital renewal plan, and I'm sorry for the blurry, but I'll just go over. So the school categories is broken up into major projects, high priority needs, many of our capital renewal based on their life cycles, and then other capital uses and such as equipment and IT. As you see over the forecast, we use this information that is dependent on revenue. And Ms. Raff, correct me if I'm wrong, I know I'm speaking financial jargon. These numbers, with the exception of the major project category, is what we hope to attain from the county each year. And from that forecasting, we right-size projects based on the information that the county gives us on how much money we would get each year, and that we know projects don't end the beginning of the year, and so we're able to create a cash flow, basically floating the money in the projects to match the revenue proposed by the county. This way, we are able to be honest with ourselves on what we can do and actually get some things done versus always just having a wish list of things and get further behind in our portfolio management. Any questions about this slide? I know it is, as you see at the top, that's kind of how that bond funding, we got the $6 million this year. In a minute, we'll talk about how we're spending that $6 million on design and early survey and environmental information for the elementary school. And then we anticipate the $54 million beginning of next fiscal year. However, we are not going to spend $54 million in 1 year. This is when the funds will be available. Again, we are projecting a finish in 2029. As you see, we will continue to plan because the next round of monies is coming in 2029, where we talk about what the next major project is. Right now, we have secondary renovations, or we may look at the time where we may prioritize those major renovations somewhere else. But all along, we'll be updating the county and updating the board, because if we do make any pivots, we'll have to give proper notice, which is stated in the agreement. Therefore, the agreement is essential on moving projects out of sequence or redefining what those major projects may be. Next slide. Yeah.
I do have a question. So like, for example, with the other capital uses, the technology plan, for example, those are just inflationary changes going along the bottom from year 1 to year 10? Is that what that increase, like, slow increase is?
Yes, that slight increase is what is projected. It could be more.
Right.
But based upon trends, this is what the county provided as a projection. I think it's roughly 3%.
Okay.
That particularly in that quarter-cent sales tax.
So as you see, we want to refresh our equipment, intercoms, laptops, anything technology. We've earmarked that monies to go towards those capital spending.
Okay, and then you mentioned the ILA, but we're coming back to that topic, has a
Well,
special spot?
I think we're gonna come back to that,
So the ILA, you see where it says major projects, that's what that governs.
Okay.
I think there was a question about whether or not the entire CIP is governed through this ILA. I just wanted to correct, that is not the case. Only the major projects that are tied to 2033, as you see on the forecast, are governed by that ILA. Yes.
And then the last line there in the major projects, remaining bond and PAYCO projects.
Yes.
What are some examples of what's in there? And that's the 2024 bond and the PAYGO money that we're talking about. Like, what sort of projects might be in that category? And I see there's like a big bump in year 4. Is that like when we expect to have the funding for that to come in, or are there particular projects we have going in year 2 and year 4 there that?
I will get back to you on that. We have not identified what those are, but however, we have identified what a major project is. And so, it may be timing based on the forecast for another major life cycle improvement, but I apologize, I can't specifically answer what that project is.
That's okay, yeah, no, the first 3 things I was really familiar with, and then I
Yeah.
wasn't quite sure that that was, and it adds up to like a decent amount of money, so I was curious what sorts of things fell in that.
That's where our difference is, right? Because the PAYGO projects were always, there were the bond projects, which were the couple of very big projects, but the PAYGO was for essential, projects like roof renovations, HVAC, life cycle maintenance, things like that. And as I read these documents, that's governed by the ILA. So the county is going to have a say in those projects. Now,
So I'll give you an example of what we could do. So we know that there are some specific unique things that our EC or Dr. Jones and I have talked about that would constitute for a major project. If everything is going well and we don't need to use that for anything specific, the county has allowed us to, whatever that major, as long as we communicate to the county, whatever that major project is, can be fulfilled within that bucket. And so that's why we constantly are looking at, we know that in year 2027, we have, over $500,000. So what major projects can we bundle in that year to fit that category? We know we have 9 million almost within the next 3 years. So we'll be planning around our portfolio on what the major project will be. Again, we specified the 3, but if there's remaining projects that were not identified within those 3 buckets, the elementary, renovation to elementary school and middle school, the remaining monies, we have yet to determine, but we're aware that we have funds to do that.
we're used to more, more specificity. I wanna just, if we take your Eflin project, the Eflin project that we're done with, we've received that money, that's why it's not showing on here, is that right? That's kind of in a capital commitment the county's already made.
Yes, that's before 25, 26.
Okay, so that wouldn't show up. So these are new projects. And the so the PAYGO projects and the high priority needs are different? Because when I read the county's documents, that's what the PAYGO is for. There's some places where it says we might use it for design, but fundamentally the PAYGO money, which is not the bond money, is that extra $10 million a year that the county's committing to us. And that PAYGO money was supposed to be done like a roof replacement for Gravely or whatever. That's how I understood it. And as I read these, the CIP, which includes those high priority projects, is subject, as I read it, it's subject really to the core group is gonna be working together, the county and both school districts will work together to make sure those projects fit the Wolford priorities. Presumably, we get to see it and then it goes to the county. But that's how I read this.
Yeah, I wanna just say, I wouldn't say Wolpert priorities, but Wolpert principles, right? If we
Okay.
identify something that is a major project or a high priority need, based on data that we're receiving, based on assessments that, staff are doing, and based on them bringing that to the county, I think it's a good move to have this core team and it be, managed by staff so that that collaboration can occur. And if we say that there's a school that we identify because of whatever reason, something happens and it needs a new roof or the HVAC, we know that we can plan and budget based on this. And if we bring that to the county, that's where the conversations begin to happen. And if we identify something as a high priority need based on the principles in Wolpert, I don't think we disagree on principles that were outlined in Wolpert. And we can present that to the county with the relevant information and data. I don't know that it's gonna be a problem, and because it is, I think that is a normal flow that should be happening between us and the county staff.
Yeah, actually, I agree. And what seems to be new is that now there's a core team, which is brilliant. It's a great idea. It came out of the Capital Needs Work Group. But there's a core team of the county and both school districts that's essentially laying this out ahead of time. But it's laying it out not just for the big bond projects, but also for the PAYGO funds, which are some of these other projects. So presumably we have agreement with the county staff before it comes to us at all. So their staff will be going to their board and saying, yes, this makes sense, and our staff comes to us and says, yes, this makes sense. That's how I read this, but it does.
I don't know if that's exactly the way it's gonna work. I think there'll be collaboration between that core team that's ongoing. We really are operating that way now. And when we're in our cycle to bring our projects to the board, we bring those and we're collaborating with county staff to staff as we go. I think there's some joint meeting presentations that will be happening where the joint boards will get an update. But I really think it's to build a stronger collaboration between the three, the two districts and the county commissioners.
Well, it's an interesting question, right? Because has the core team gone through this?
There is no core team right now.
Yeah, so the core team hasn't been created yet, so presumably the core team would have.
But I will say, have we worked with the county on our capital renewal and improvements? Yes. It's just not a formal process right now because don't have the agreement, there's no name for the core team. We haven't designated, this is the person that we're sending, even though Mr. Davis knows whether he has one S or two S's behind his name, it's going to be him. So, but I think, we've been operating less formally, and so to bring something, to where we can have a steady flow, I think it's just gonna strengthen the communication. And if we have any concerns around a project not being approved, I think we'll be able to work and talk through those. And the county has made that clear with us as well.
Okay, because it does reference in here the capital improvement plan as well as the project, so, and the capital improvement plan is this, it's not just the projects. I would ask for a closer look at it. Maybe the board everyone could look at it. It'll be on our agenda for our next meeting.
I'm not sure. So we
Okay.
have submitted revisions based on staff recommendations and legal recommendations. And when we hear back from the county, I will keep the board updated. I will say, my recommendation would be to allow staff to continue working through this,
Yep.
As the experts in the area and as having experience in working through major projects and construction and, all the design process. And if we're uncomfortable about any area, we'll bring that up. And then just allow us to continue working with legal, and we will constantly update you. That's why you got the update that you have. Once we have an update, we provided it to you all. And when it's time to approve, we'll be bringing that to you. So we haven't heard back from the county yet.
just, you might have said this earlier and I was maybe trying to catch up on something, but what's the revised ILA versus the updated ILA? Cause I looked at them both, what's the difference there?
Yeah, the updated is what the county sent to us, and then the revised is what we sent back. It's dated
Okay.
1/8. We
Okay.
recommended a few changes
Okay, thank you.
now.
Yeah, and those were the changes that Dr. Jones mentioned in her email.
Gotcha,
Right,
right,
they're
right.
pretty simple, really good, I thought it was great. But most of it is a response to the conversation we had months ago,
Mhm.
right? But again, the thing that's missing, and if you wanna, is it helps to look at the county's capital funding process, and I could, I thought I sent it to you all, I didn't look like I did, I'll send it to you all. But-
Yeah,
But I think it gives context for what this agreement operates within from their perspective. My question is, any other questions before I have two questions. Mr. Davis, you've been giving us a great report on, it's been on consent that just shows the progress of our projects. Because there's what's that's been already allocated from capital, and then this is about new capital, it's a very, very confusing, in general, but, so that report has been really helpful to show where are the projects that we have committed that are now, and how we're doing on them, and we're doing great, and I just wanna thank you for all of that, it's terrific.
You're referring to the change order report?
What do you call it?
The change order report that you get monthly?
Is that what it is? Yeah.
It
it's
is.
on
Yeah.
consent.
Yeah, it's terrific. It's very helpful to really see where we are.
It's board policy, it just wasn't being done, so.
Okay, well, there you go. Well, so, you know,
You
so-
put the policy in place, you just administer the policy, so.
Well, it's a terrific report, and if anybody's like watching agendas or finances, it's really one to look at. It's been, it's a great report. This is about projects that aren't committed yet. These are about our new projects that you.
This is planning.
Right, so this is the update to our capital improvement plan. Again, each year we bring it to you based on our priority needs. If you remember, based on the Brook report, we have X amount of need, but X amount of dollars. And so, as I stated earlier, under my leadership, I like to be real. And so we prioritize our projects based on the reality of getting the funding. And honestly, that's how high priority needs become major projects, because the funding never aligns and you need a major bond in order to take care of some of your major projects. That's essentially what the county and districts do. They identify how they're going to support districts in their capital improvements by different funding buckets. And the great districts know how to utilize this cash flow, understanding when projects, that's why it's important for us to move quickly through, not necessarily quickly, but efficiently in our design and community engagement, because as I stated, time is money, and we have too little time and not enough money. So, as a method to our madness, we're showcasing this, again, as Dr. Jones has stated, we are working to identify projects that fit kind of the projected budgets for the next 10 years.
Right, so, and for the county, they really commit only 1 year.
Yeah.
So,
It's not real.
so, and the first column is last year, correct? And then the second column is the commitment we're looking for this year.
Right, so I'll give you an example, the New Hope Elementary roof, right? We got $1 million. Now, the roof, I think, was like 3 something. But I think we're coming in under budget, so when we close that out, I'm gonna be working with Ms. Raff for us to work with the county to reposition those fundings into a larger overall bucket for us to take away some of the other deficiencies that we have in our facility needs.
Okay, so let me, we're asking this year for the county to make the commitment to our new school. That's what the 54 million is.
Yeah, that's correct, and that is going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, that's because that's the bond, so they issue, and Ralph probably can do it better, but the issuance of bonds, and how fast we pay off helps our county's credit card rating. Pretty much, that's what it is, right? It's a credit
The
card.
debt rating, yes.
And we try to pay it off as quickly as possible, because that helps them with their ratings, and hopefully they may generate another bond before the 10-year mark, we hope. But yeah, that's the method to.
So it's a commitment of the funds, but they'll be issuing the funds, as you said earlier, we're not getting all that money right yet, we're not ready for it. We're gonna be talking about the design in a minute, but I'm just trying to understand what the report is, and
Okay.
for the board and for the public. And then the other projects, the Gravelly, the New Hope, well, I guess that's just, the Gravelly Hills, the second column, the second row under high priority needs, 2 to 10, is that just a placeholder?
So we work with the county on their cash flow. So when you see high priority needs, if you refer to the work report, there are specific school sites and specific projects under the high priority needs that have been identified. Now, whether or not they fully are funded through this spending cycle, that's for us as administration to support, refute, or redevelop it. And that's why every year, we will be redeveloping our capital improvement plan to fit with the agreed upon county cash flow.
So just to make sure that I understand, and I know we have other things to talk about too. So each year, we have to approve the capital improvement plan to be sent to the county.
Mhm.
This is that document that
Mhm.
we're gonna be asked in our next board meeting to approve, and we'll send to the county. In some years, it has been numerous pages long, so the thing that says high priority needs years 2 through 10, it would list out all
That's
of the
right.
future projects and like which year we're gonna do them and all of those things. We're not doing that here, which I think is fine, because the whole point of the capital improvement plan is you do it every year. Year one is the only one where you really have the money, and those things always shift around anyway. What
You
am I
are
getting
correct.
right or wrong?
And I think, not to, so Dr. Jones wasn't in place 2 years ago.
Yep.
And therefore, Mr. Davis wasn't in place. I think when we have spoken with the county, they now trust us, which it should always be, district, to figure out what those high priority needs. They've let us know what the funding's gonna be, and now it's our job to work within that funding. I think prior to Dr. Jones' arrival, maybe the county was asserting themselves in Orange County capital business by telling us what our projects need to be. That is not the case now. As you see, they're allowing us the autonomy to pick and choose what those high priority needs based on the funding.
Well, and I do think that's really important, and the idea of Woolpert principles and following those in all of this, because I know I always keep bringing up the Orange High School parking lot, but it is, the repaved parking lot is lovely to drive on,
And it happened.
and it happened, and they
Yes.
had told us no, because it wasn't categorized as a number 1 or number 2 or number
Yeah.
3 priority, which is just foolish. You have to repave a parking
Yeah.
lot if it has giant potholes in it. So, I'm grateful that that project happened, but it's a good example of
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
if you have a core team and you're like, here are the pictures of the parking lot, clearly
Yeah.
we can't wait until you're 15 for this, you know?
Yeah, and seeing it on paper and saying it is one thing, but when you're collaborating, it's
Right.
another. And you
Exactly.
can go into a little bit greater detail about why that is a high priority need.
Right.
So, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
So, and I agree that you can't see the future over the next 10 years, but, and again, this is really, if I understand year 2, we're capturing the money that's due us, our portion of the pay-go money, for example. But I'm looking at I was wondering, is it possible for the 3.36 million and the 1.2 million, is it possible for us to get an idea for this year coming, what projects we are intending or we're thinking about? Or are we not ready to do that?
I'll just say, I think that would be helpful too. So if this is the plan that's moving forward, and like this bit and this bit are the things that are to happen this coming year, like knowing what's in those buckets.
If you need that, you don't need that this month.
Well, I
That
mean,
would
no,
be-
actually, if you go to the next slide, I think that.
Is that-
It's
Oh,
on
okay.
there.
Is
that where that's going?
It's on the next.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And just a time check, it is 7:04.
Okay.
Next slide.
On the screen.
All right, so, to answer your question, here are, knowing the cash flow, here are a couple of projects and their state. So, of course, we have the elementary school replacement. We're in due diligence and planning and design. Gravely Hill Middle School roof replacement, which is a major project. It's already been designed. Already been designed is the New Hope Elementary HVAC Phase 3. We are in the process of looking at a district-wide media center, changing out furniture, fixture, and equipment to make sure that as learning spaces change, we want to be up to date in our media center, so that's the purpose of that. Many of our tracks have been outdated and outworn since their conception, and so we're looking at, particularly at our middle school level, enhancing those track and athletic fields. And then I like to say my low-hanging fruit is my mission is to have all of our elementary schools with new playground equipment. And so we have finished a couple of rounds and working on another round. And then what was on our priority list, which still is, and we'll talk about how we're being efficient in planning, AL standby HVAC replacement. Now, all these projects are major capital improvements, and to answer your question, that bucket of money will go to support these projects, along with other funding that we have in arrears that we haven't spent. And so what the county finance and our finance office wants us to do, the monies can float. And Ms. Rath can correct me when I misspeak. And so it's a delicate dance, but I do this in my sleep sometimes. You can rob Peter to pay Paul as long as it's under the umbrella of high priority needs, which all of these projects are. I don't see Mr. Davis's Maserati on here, so I don't think you have anything to worry about. And so, yes, we are planning and strategizing how to use that money when the county provides this to us.
Yeah. As I read, and again, I'm just looking at their stuff, and I'm looking at it, that they're gonna scrutinize it in a different way than we are, because they're funding it. So things like athletic fields, things like furnishings, I think they may ask us to do it in different buckets and allocate the funds differently. That's what I read.
Have you had any conversations?
Not this year yet, but we plan on between now and February to meet with the county.
So the point is, I think we're in agreement, though, that the ILA, all of this is affecting the PAYGO project as well as just the bond projects. And so it's just, so I'm just gonna say this, I'm wondering, if the county is going to impose new reporting standards on us and how we submit our capital plans. And they're gonna be asking us to have projects identified and scored by Wolpert, and if we're clear on where the funding's gonna come from, or if that's.
They're already not doing that.
Well, I'm hearing
That's
they
yeah.
have
Yeah.
never done that, they've never done that.
Right, I don't think we are anticipating that that's going to happen.
Okay,
No.
all right, I'll leave it, we'll see, and.
Can I say something, Ms.
Sure.
Hauser? I think that you all have done a fantastic job, not only in presenting this to us, but I also think that you have done a fantastic job in building a relationship with the county and working with them. And I think that relationship is going to continue to be even better because you're being open, honest. They're seeing exactly what we want. You're telling them exactly what we need. You've got it all with the data that you and your team have done through working with all the people in maintenance and everything. So I applaud you all for all the work, all the time, and all the hours that you have put in doing the research to get the information to the county, and then meeting with the county and working with the county and having a good, solid relationship with them. So I, as a board member, would like to thank you for that hard work that you have done, as well as presenting all of this to us tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So, that's, just, certainly we appreciate everything that's being done and the quality of professionalism that you brought to our capital process. What I'm seeing from my conversations with the county is the level of spending is more than we've ever seen. And the need for controls and transparency is, much more pressure is coming on the county, which is going to come to us. And so that's what the question will be. And we'll see, once you start meeting with the work group, we'll be curious about what comes out of that. I read in the documents that there'll be a dashboard, a county dashboard for reporting. I presume we're gonna have to comply with that. So, I'm expecting some new reporting content. And the only thing I would ask is that anything that goes to the county comes to us.
It comes to you first. And so really, we've talked about that, both boards. It's basically redundancy. We
Yep.
follow our patterns. We do have money within that 6 million. Ms. Raff and I are looking at some project management tool softwares that will allow us to disseminate that information to you.
Right.
Progress on the projects. Again, as we hire our project management for it, we'll be getting all of this information, more than your heart's desire, to know the progress of the project, so.
Since I've been on the board, we've never had $60 million to spend.
Yes, and
So this is great.
Yep.
It's a lot of money.
And I just wanna say thanks to Mr. Davis, and I know I've said it before, but he has had a much larger budget than that to manage in previous places, and I just appreciate his expertise
Yeah, me too.
that he brings to this, and to the confidence he's bringing to, us working with the county.
thank you, Dr. Jones. Let me go through the presentation, there
Sure.
may be some other questions, and just for time's sake. Just wanted to highlight, some of the things that we're doing that is not being seen. Next slide. Now, we had a original project on our priority list, A.L. Standback HVAC full replacement. We had bids last week that took us to a number astronomical, 6.7 million. We've thus looked at alternatives that will be easier to maintain, less piping and other things that go into the original scope, no need for swing space, and it eliminates time and money. If you look at the chart, it shows the original design versus what we have proposed to the thanks of our third-party consultant, project management NC. We look to save $1 million in 1 year with the simple reanalysis and planning of this project. This is what I mean by we are constantly looking at our priority projects and making sure they are scoped right, and we can make improvements with the available funding. And so we show this because there may have been a literature out there that A.L. Standback, or there may have been some communication in the community about HVAC improvements at A.L. Standback. We want to assure those who are at A.L. Standback that we care. Their HVAC is not going out tomorrow. We've confirmed that. But these are just some of the things that we're doing behind the scenes to make sure that we're projecting the right projects for our school system.
And this shows in your change order report too, that your projects are consistently coming in within or better than budget.
Yes.
So-
Now, one would say that's a good thing, but I say sometimes that could be a bad. It's like sandbagging if you play spades. If your hand is your hand, and so you keep them spades that we could use for someone else. If I could use that analogy, Dr.
You
Harris.
did already.
Okay. So yeah. But yes, we are seeing some savings on some of our future past projects. Does someone have? Okay. Next slide. So really quickly, want to go over the design process and review. I know there are many who have not gone through this process before, so we just want to make sure we help the board understand next steps and what goes into the design process and review. Next slide. And so here's kind of a year timetable. We know this project is slated to be finished in school year 2029, but this is just where we are to date. We are January, and so at the end of this month, we'll bring on the consent both project management and design contracts. The board approved negotiation with the qualified firms for each category in December. And so to keep us on track, we're gonna bring before you those negotiated contracts. In a minute, I'll talk about what is in those contracts, and we've also done some research on negotiation and numbers that we'll share with you to continue to vet and make sure that we're using all of our dollars wisely. We have already started initial conversations with both Orange County and Mebane Planning, and we're gonna continue that this month. Because we wanna make sure that we get ahead of any uncertainties, given that this is green space or undeveloped land, we wanna start some early site and survey, just to make sure we don't have any unforeseen conditions when we start design and construction. And to help us with the constructability, we'll be putting out our CMAR, also known as Construction Manager at Risk method, which is explicitly the delivery method stated in the ILA. Both districts are utilizing this method. This group will be able to forecast, project early site packages, and just a myriad of things that will help us control our costs on the construction. And then once we have an approved, executed contract, we'll begin our design kickoff, which will include some community and administration engagement. We will, through that process, begin what we call the schematic design, looking at adjacencies, looking at views to the site and nearby adjacent buildings, and then we'll move into design development. At the end of design development, which is at the end of 2026, that's when we will need, per policy, the board to approve that design. And by that time, you would have heard from administration on the reiterations, how we got to this point, how we feel we are in terms of costs, and we will need your approval to move forward into the next stage, which is construction documents. Any questions on this slide?
You said you're gonna go into more detail in some of these pieces. I'm gonna hold my questions until you do
Okay,
that.
no worries. Next slide. And so we, under Dr. Jones' leadership, I mean, you know, one of these events will be considered a Super Bowl, but, you know, because she's so excellent and she got a great team, we got 3 Super Bowls going on. So of course we have the district strategic plan, we have our ORED, attendance and master planning, and then we have the new elementary school. And so in effort to be efficient, we are working with all departments to kind of align our community engagement as well as data that drives both the strategic plan, the ORED study, and the new elementary school, so we can be as efficient as possible. This strategic timeline is just to show you where we are and communicate to the community that we are serious about improving the lives of our students here in Orange County. Next slide, please. So as we stated, we are at the negotiation phase for both our project management and design. And so right now we know that the elementary school, based on the 600 student capacity, we project the total project budget of $55 million. What goes into that total project budget is contingency, off-site stormwater, professional service, which is design and project management service, and then the bulk of it again is the 75%, which accounts for $42 million of it. And so when you look at how you negotiate fees, we try to make sure that we are cognizant of the industry standards. And so these numbers here are based on surrounding districts. We've spoken with Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools, and we know they are about a month ahead of us, which is good. They've already assigned contracts, and so our design fees for the construction is around 5 to 10%. Our owner project management fees around 2 to 4%, and commissioner agent, which is a third party that ensures that what we design and construct is actually operating and functioning properly, is around 1% of the construction budget. And so we give you these numbers as we bring the contracts at the end of this month, we will be fitting those fees within those appropriate ranges. And again, these numbers come from districts as well as NCDPI also keeps track of some numbers, even though they're kind of outdated. But based on my experience, these are industry standards in terms of those percentages. Next slide, please. And so what is in these scopes of work? For the architect or designer, you have basic services, which is basically civil, structural, architectural, mechanical, electrical planning. Those are the base services. That's the basic thing in order to design a building. And then outside of that, supplemental design services. They're supplemental, but we feel as though based on the type of building that the district wants, these supplemental will be included in that design service contract. All of these things will be outlined in the proposal and contract. But for instance, the design team may not be a subject matter expert in cafeteria design. And so we want to make sure that the feng shui of the cafeteria design is from a cafeteria consultant. And so we may hire a cafeteria consultant to work with our design team, as well as hiring consultants for fixture, furniture, and equipment, IT, security. These things only enhance the building. And based on our overall kind of budget, we hope to be able to get some of those supplemental design services within the contract. For project management services, overall project plan, providing our updates, overseeing and facilitating our community engagement, working with municipalities on zoning and permit and utility work, managing the process of the designer, making sure they're on task, as well as the construction manager, and then managing deliverables of fixtures, furniture, and equipment, as well as coordinating with third-party data and AV security. That's always something that needs a third party. You'd be surprised what irks me. You get to the final and somebody has a drop in the middle of a room. So that coordination takes a lot that the project manager will be doing. And then closing out the project, as well as, this is a relatively easy move because it's coming from a new site, but handling our move management. Next slide. So with that, hopefully that gives you an idea of what will be coming before you in January, as well as the process in which to move us along in the new elementary school project.
Questions?
Thank you. It is very exciting to see it all to come together. So I've been talking to a couple of people. I think I've mentioned that there are charter schools that are managing to be built for a lot less money than the typical cost for a public school in North Carolina. I know we've looked at all the all of our estimates are in line with what DPI, like what these projects have cost, like real data. One of the things, though, that one of these folks brought up to me was that the way that charter schools do their contracts for these projects is not by percentage of the total cost, but it's a flat fee. It's a flat number. And so, because when the designer's fee is a percentage of the cost of the building, there's an incentive there to not build a cheap building. Potentially, and so I guess I have some concern that it's like based on a percentage, because I really want us to be as cost efficient as we can with this funding, because if we can save millions of dollars, those are millions of dollars that can be spent on, maybe we could have 2 new buildings, you know what I mean? I mean, not with that same amount of money, but, so I guess, I know that we're like well down into this negotiation process, but I have some concern about the fact that it's a percentage of the cost of the project versus sort of a flat rate.
So I would say that how we determine an appropriate fee is based on a percentage, but their fee will be a flat rate based on deliverables and their services. As a licensed professional, we don't necessarily have a fee. However, the amount of work based on the square footage of the building is really the cost of how we got to 42 million. I mean, unless, I don't know what the charter schools are putting in their buildings, but a 600 student, 100-year lifespan building at this juncture would be around 40 million. And so knowing that there are some things in terms of creating the documents, time, that go into their fee. And so the bigger the building, the more time a design
It takes
firm
to
has
design.
to. So I hear your concern, and we will look at again how their ratio to the building looks, and as we go through it, if there are any cost saving measures, we'll try to highlight those in the project. I know it's going to look like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but as a professional, it is value versus a lot of money. And I would hate to not have a professional design a building for the next 50 to 100 years. That's my look for it.
Yes, and I think, and there may be, I think that there are probably some real, like, legitimate differences in what drives the cost of a chart. If a chart school is planning a 30 to 50-year facility as opposed to one that needs to last for 80 to 100 years, there are some definitely design choices there. It was that percentage that concerned me, because if you have, let's say we start with a plan for a $42 million building, and then you do the public input sessions, and you talk to school staffs and get more input, and everybody's like, I want more windows, I want a bigger atrium, and each of those things are dollars, and then we end up with a larger project.
But we're gonna stay within our budget. So the 42 million is the 42 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're
We're
not
building
gonna-
a 600 square foot, and so just because someone says they want something, it doesn't mean they're gonna
Okay.
get all the windows.
This was my concern
and-
about sort of like,
Yeah.
like sort of
No,
building.
they're not, we control that
Yeah,
piece.
it's a cap. 42
Yeah.
million is, if I can't build a school for 42 million, then we can't. We believe
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
can. So,
Yeah.
that fee is going to be fixed. There is no incentive to increase the building size and this increase their fee. It's almost as simple as time and material. Again, my goal is to get us closer to the bottom of the range, but
But we want good quality school. That's gonna last.
Right.
That's gonna be safe.
Right.
And so when we go through the input sessions, yes, people are gonna have some great ideas, but if we can't build it for the 42 million, then it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
We'll have to prioritize
Yeah.
and take a look at.
And that's
the
important,
feedback.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you for all the presentations and the time y'all put in there, and we appreciate, all the details. One question I had is, I know the county has been talking about parking lots and the soccer.com and fixing that, and then I've heard them talk about joint space for an auditorium. How, the question I have is, how does that fit into our budget versus are they kicking in additional dollars to build a parking lot we weren't planning on, or additional space that is beyond an elementary school? And I know y'all are early in the process, but I'm just curious, because I don't want to end up in that space where we're at that top of our budget now having to
Add an
remove something to
auditorium.
accommodate a parking lot, or, anyway, I'm just curious, because I've heard those discussions a few times and just,
So we've talked to the county, and right now, because of the ILA and their own capital plan, the board has not said that they're going to support any additional funding that will make a shared use. But what we are doing, just in case the board does wanna come back, is in our negotiations, making them do a master plan of the site, just preliminary, that we will share with the county to see if there's feasibility in us constructing our building in a way that there is shared use in terms of parking. And so I guess the answer to your question is yes, we are looking into that, but one thing is our priority is the elementary school. It'd be nice if we could, you know, as the board has stated, the county use shared facilities. I think, you know, to their vantage point, they've already given us the land, so maybe that's the extent of the shared. But we're not gonna delay the main goal, which is the elementary school, because the board doesn't align with supporting whatever needs, whatever additional funding may be needed to have a shared use. But we hope to have a plan in place that they can identify funding to support a future shared use in our design.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was a great question. I wanna kind of play with it a little bit.
And I'm sorry, and we did talk, and so no scopes outside of elementary school will be funded by Orange County. And so, based on that direction, it's going to be limited on what we propose, because that's not a part of the major projects. And so we wanna stick within that and not go down the wrong way.
In Orange County, not Orange County Schools, you meant to,
Correct.
Yeah, Orange County
Orange
will
County.
not,
Yes.
okay.
because the bond is specific
Right.
to the
So we
major
can't
project.
share, yeah, we can't create a project within, it's an elementary school.
Right, right.
So you have Gravely, and lots of parking, lots of athletic fields, then a big soccer field, and there's parking on the Gravely side of the soccer field, and then another 35 acres on the other side of the soccer field. So at first I wanna know if we'll be able to use the soccer field, but, that's kind of a joke, but the truth is that it's over 100 acres of land overall, and are you gonna be, like, looking at the overall site and say, are there ways we should change around the configuration of this, even our own site at Gravely, and move some things over to the new site? And, you know, and will there be an overall site plan, or you're just gonna look at the new site and plan a new school on it?
Yes, all of the above, but yes, I talked about early site package and early survey work. That's critical for us to answer some of those questions that you highlighted.
Will we get like kind of a feedback on what comes out of it? So would we be able to see your site, once you've thought it through and said, we're gonna do this and this, will you share a site plan with the board and the public?
Yes, we will. We will update, as we get to those deliverables, all of that information.
Yeah, and that's way before the design, but that's like, this is where we're gonna put the school, this is where it's gonna go, this is where everything, that's great.
Now, yeah, I just want y'all to be in limbo for the next 2.5 years, and then boom, ribbon cutting.
No, we don't know, but the design itself is huge.
Yes.
The design itself is
Yeah.
huge, and so it would be nice to get and the fact that the configuration of 2 schools with a soccer field in the middle of it and lots of parking lots is challenging and also an opportunity.
And we shared that with our RFQ process, and we believe that the board has selected, and we're negotiating with the best qualified firm that will use all those problems to solve and make a exciting elementary school.
Another question that I have, so another place where I heard costs can vary quite a bit is in the FFE, the furniture, fixtures and equipment, furniture and equipment,
That's correct.
whichever order. And so I see that we're gonna have somebody do design services specifically for that. Is that gonna then later be put out to like bid on a subcontract? Is there like gonna be a competitive bidding process to like find the most cost-effective FFE? I'm seeing you nod.
Yes, and just so you know, we may or may not include a third party for furniture, fixture, equipment. We are working internally to do some furniture packages. That was just an illustration of what is included in basic services and what are supplemental services. But we will be constantly looking at how we can cut costs. I've seen it both ways. Our IT department can do their own pulling and dragging, or we can put in a contract that the contractor pulls it to a certain point. And yes, we will make sure where we can save money, we will save money. So I hope that answers.
Yes, I don't mean to be beating a dead horse on the money thing. I know that there's like a wide-ranging cost for these things. So in these places where I'm getting information that there might be opportunities to save, like the structure of the contract or the FFE. And then the third one that was around, and I think I mentioned this one in an earlier meeting, was just sort of like, are we going with, well, charter schools, first of all, do not have the class size rules for lower elementary, so they can put more children in those classrooms, so they can, you know, there's some things like that that also lead to the cost differences, but to what extent we are like going over like the DPI minimum for different spaces for like your classroom or your like hallway width or some of those things that add to the square footage that there may be some flexibility around. I'm not trying to like have a
What?
terrible
No, and I
designed
understand.
school,
You
but
wanna
you know what
make
I'm
sure
saying?
that
You
the
make it
money provides value.
Yeah.
And what we will do at every iteration we can, I will provide you why this costs this much and what the value it is to the students. For example, you may say, oh, we can save money by just having smaller corridors. But I can say that if you increase the corridors and provide pull-out space, you actually create environments for interaction socially as well as peer-to-peer learning. And so that widening of the corridor may cost us $1 million, but the value is priceless.
I mean, and that's the trade-off. Like, those are the trade-offs we should be making. It's helpful to understand those places, you know, where we're going beyond sort of like the cheapest option. Why? And maybe we make those choices, you know? I hope the building has some
This will not be a
windows.
cheap building. It feel like you cheap.
You know, I have to say this, you know, if you look at some of the charter schools are doing, what are they called, concrete slab, exterior walls.
Like
There are
Tilt-ups,
others that
yeah.
are building, they call them learning cottages, but they're actually cinder block mobile units. And so it's just not, and I will just say, I looked at the proposals, the design proposals, and they were breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking, the schools that our companies built. And so I want that, so thank you.
We're gonna have
Hey,
that.
so,
No learning cottages
Yeah.
for me. Any other questions? What is the next step for us to get your contracts going?
Contracts will,
well,
yeah, we're
within
gonna,
this month, there will be
yeah.
on consent, and then, we'll begin the design, portion, which we'll be communicating, again, working through the different events that we have going on. Dr. Jones has shared with our team, be efficient. And so as Dr. Packer and her team are gathering data, some of that data will be used for both the ORAD report and new elementary schools. So when community members are talking about what type of spaces our students are in, we can grab that information to develop our program for the new elementary school, as well as any other information that will help with our overall CIP. So next steps will be approve the contracts and move us forward. There won't be a formal presentation until design development per policy, but there will be opportunities for the community and the board to see some of the iterations of design throughout this next coming months. So,
And just to connect some dots, so the $6 million that we approved last year,
that's gonna
that's
fund these
paying for the
projects.
design.
Right, the design, the early site packages, anything I can get done within that $6 million, I'm gonna try to get it done so that we can move forward to receive the other funding coming forward. And as you can see, we actually will probably have some remaining money, right? Because 6 plus 54 is not 55, so we are doing very well.
Good, good. But your funding is a year ahead, so you're managing a funding process that's a year ahead of your planning and design and building process,
Correct, yeah.
right? So, helpful. Any other questions? anything that anyone wants to see as, other than the contract and the design work? I can't wait. Anything else? All right, motion, are we ready, guys?
Yeah.
Anything else, Dr. Jones? Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
second?
Oh, second,
I'm
I thought you were,
looking
I thought you were
for a second.
seconding.
Not allowed
No,
to second.
second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you so much.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.